I noticed a distinct recurring villain archetype in several K dramas I have recently watched. I call this character the genius psychopath high school girl. She's very smart, calculated, and collected. She's playing 3D chess while everyone else is playing checkers. She's always trying to figure out everyone's motives and weaknesses so she can exploit them, sometimes for her gain and sometimes just for fun. She does not feel empathy, which makes her a very dangerous opponent. I have seen this type of antagonist in 3K dramas. Jang Habin from the 2024 aesthetically pleasing thriller Doubt, Go Mi-suk from the 2023 time travel murder mystery drama My Perfect Stranger, and queer icon Yoo Jae from the sapphic high school thriller Friendly Rivalry from 2025. This character archetype is an attractive and confident high school girl who has time for complicated schemes that require an insane amount of planning. She has an eye for details and is able to connect them into a bigger picture. She's always 3 steps ahead of the protagonist, or at least she wants everyone to think that she is. Go Mi-suk and Yoo Jae are both sadistic queen bee bullies, but they also don't like getting their hands dirty, and usually outsource most of the abuse to other girls who do their bidding. Habin is not into it, but mainly because she's more of an introvert. I cannot picture her wasting her skills on something as trivial as bullying classmates. The genius high school psychopath girl has a very cool demeanor. There's a certain femme fatale elegance to the way she moves, because she thinks she's always in control. She's also cruel and cynical. When she hears about bad things happening to other people, she doesn't hide her fascination. She also often says super out-of-pocket creepy stuff that makes her look like a serial killer. In all 3 of these K-dramas, there's a murder subplot, and the teenage mastermind girl is one of the suspects. And she really leans into it. She wants people to think she's dangerous. She keeps the audience guessing the whole time whether we can trust her. This character is not intimidated by cops, because she's convinced that she can outsmart them. She's somehow able to manipulate everyone around her, not just her peers, but also adults, experienced cops, and hardened criminals. My main issue with how this villain archetype is written is with the way her genius is portrayed. These K-dramas always have a plot twist that everything that happened was her plan all along. A plan that is so convoluted and complex that it requires predicting irrational or random human behavior with uncanny accuracy. You were trying to double-cross her because you knew she was planning something? Well, she actually double-crossed you already because she totally knew you would think that. The genius feels fake and unearned because people do the exact thing she expected them to at the right moment, and all the unpredictable variables line up precisely the way she thought they would. Her ridiculous plans work not because they're logical, but because the plot needs to move forward and the writers want to signal that she's smarter than everyone else. In fact, she's even smarter than the screenwriter who wrote her story. She can already do surgery on real people even though she's just an 18-year-old high schooler. Or she can become a successful novelist and get a publishing deal at 19, and she didn't even write the book herself. Because she's not the protagonist and the story is mostly told from other characters' perspective, the audience doesn't get to see her whole thought process. This is super convenient for the screenwriter. You don't have to write a plausible way for her to execute her plan if you just say that it worked. This character might not be a realistic genius, but she still has another hidden superpower: her privilege. In My Perfect Stranger and Friendly Rivalry, her parents own a hospital. She's a spoiled rich girl whose family has a lot of influence, power, and connections. Yoo Jae is a drug dealer of her school. She resells meds that she's stealing from her dad's hospital, and he knows about it. She does not get in any trouble for it, this is just a fun hobby she does on the side. And even if she did get caught, they have access to top lawyers. She was never going to face any real consequences. A poor character could not do what she does. Go Mi-suk also gets away with a lot. In the original timeline, she manages to frame her brother for a murder he didn't commit and builds a successful career off a novel she stole. The main characters manage to fix these events by traveling back in time, but she still doesn't face any real consequences. The cops know that she lied about the murderer's identity and her plagiarism gets exposed, but she barely gets a slap on the wrist. In Doubt, Habin's family is not as rich as the other two girls, but they're clearly not struggling financially in their big fancy house. Her power mainly comes from the fact that her dad is a cop. She can get away with a lot because the police always protect their own. She's an insider who knows exactly how cops investigate and what they're looking for. She can just walk into a police station, smile politely, and read all the case files on her dad's desk unsupervised. She can also wield a knife inside a police station in an attempt to kill someone and not get into any trouble. None of the other characters in her K-drama can do that. The high school psychopath girl thinks she's a genius who can get away with anything, because she actually does get away with a lot of crimes. Her privilege is what really shields her from serious consequences, but she doesn't see that. She's a nepo baby who thinks that her impunity is proof that she's smarter than everyone around her. In reality, she's not a criminal mastermind. She's just the daughter of someone no one can say no to. But how do you defeat an opponent for whom everything always works out? Her thinking that she has thought of everything is her biggest weakness actually, because of course she hasn't literally thought of everything. She's confident that she can pull off a perfect crime and that she's the only one who has all the information, but there are always other variables she couldn't possibly know about. If you want to defeat her, you have to catch her off guard with something she didn't know yet. She will be forced to spontaneously change her plans. She will either get angry or pretend that she's unfazed by it, like, wow, what a fun turn of events, how fascinating. I feel like half of the time she just wings it and pretends like everything went according to her plan because she doesn't want anyone to question whether she's in control. Another weakness of hers is her teenage maximalism. She wants to think big and make drastic decisions that can't be undone. She wants to put people in jail, murder her enemies, fake her own death. These are not particularly smart moves. Just because she thought a lot about how to execute a very convoluted plan doesn't mean it's a good plan. She's also not as threatening as she likes to be perceived. The camera makes her look much more cunning than she actually is. She talks in a way that makes her look extremely suspicious. But if you rewatch certain scenes with her, after knowing who the real murderer was, you will realize that the meaningful looks she was exchanging with her friend did not mean what you thought they did. A lot of ominous scenes turn out to be red herrings, especially in My Perfect Stranger, which is probably just bad writing that intentionally tries to mislead the audience so we don't see the big plot twist coming. In reality, she's not as dangerous as she wants people to think. She is, after all, just a teenage girl who wants to be perceived as tough and smart. Someone who people won't mess with. The first plot twist, or the first 3-4 plot twists if we're honest, is that everything was her plan all along. And the final big plot twist at the end of the show is that she was not the murderer actually. The real main villain is always an adult who's more ruthless and violent than her, but this reveal does not prove her innocence. She did plan to murder people or at least ruin their lives, she just ended up not going through with it due to circumstances, but not for the lack of trying. She does not seem to regret any of her crimes. The plot does not force her to suddenly become a good person in a contrived redemption arc. This character embraces her personality, that's just who she is, and the screenwriter allows her to be herself. I don't think it is fair to even call her a morally grey character, because she's not really conflicted about her decisions. She's unambiguously an antagonist who fully embraces her evil side. All three of these girls are a similar character archetype, but they each have very different stories and motivations. This is not a predictable and one-dimensional cookie-cutter villain. This is a complex and complicated young woman who is the result of her upbringing. In Friendly Rivalry, her psychopath dad raised Jay to believe that everyone is her competition, even her sister. Actually, especially her sister. Everything in life is a zero-sum game, and someone else always has to lose in order for her to win. This is an insane way to raise your children. Everything about her starts to make sense once you understand the family dynamic. She's also allowed to explore her queer desires in the show, adding another layer to the character. Although the jury is still out on whether the show was queerbaiting the audience or not, but we're going to discuss this in a separate video. In Doubt, Habin's parents have been treating her like a murderous psychopath since she was a child. When her little brother passed away under suspicious circumstances, her parents assumed it was her fault. This conflict tinted every future interaction with her family. The mom covered up a whole murder because she thought her daughter did it, and even ended her own life because of it. Habin's dad has also been treating her like a suspect her whole life. She's very clearly neurodivergent. They should have just went to a good child therapist with her instead of all this. In My Perfect Stranger, Misuk has a violent older brother who has been beating her for a decade, which is why she went so far in trying to get rid of him. Yes, she knows that he's not the real killer and she doesn't care about the victims, but she has pretty good reasons to be scared of her brother. She just wants to find a way out of her circumstances, but she always defaults to solving her problems with a complicated, nefarious plan, because that's just how her mind works. By the end of the show, it is open to interpretation whether she changed and became a better person. It is up to her what she does with her life. In My Perfect Stranger, the female lead travels back to the present time and sees Misuk as an adult, but chooses not to engage or look up what kind of person she became. Jae ended up faking her own death so she can start a new life without her father, and Habin's dad decided to finally trust his kid and becomes a caring parent. We don't know what kind of life these girls end up living, and for a female character in a K-drama, this feels very liberating.